courses this semester. So that means that I have 3 sections of AMDM. One is the A semester, which you may think of as semester 1. And then I also have semester B, which would be considered second semester, and then semester AB. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you. That's not what I wanted to do. I was hoping maybe I could make this a little bit smaller. But can everybody see the screen? Just shout out. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. As I said, my name is Lisa Pizzuto. I work for Fulton Virtual. I've worked as an adjunct teacher for Fulton Virtual for quite some time, about 14 or so years. And last year I took on the position of being a full-time mathematics teacher for Fulton Virtual. Also, this past summer, I just finished my master's degree in instructional technology and received my endorsement for online teaching. So I'm super excited to use some of the things that I've been learning with your students as well. So, and I hope that they will enjoy that. Everyone at this point should have received a welcome email from me. And one of the things I really emphasize in my welcome email is that communication is going to be the key. I feel very privileged because I'm able to communicate on a multiple levels with your students, that they can email me, call me, text me. The only thing I do ask is that they try and include their full name and their course name when they text or email me, and this helps a lot. The more students I have, the harder it is to remember email addresses and so forth. And everybody's gotten really good about this. I have about 90% of all students have texted me already. That's one of the first things I ask everybody to do, is I ask a student to text me their full name and the course that they're taking. And I also ask that a parent do the same, whoever wants to be, or if every parent wants to be, everybody can text me their child's full name and the course their child's taking. I'm only at about 75% of my parents texting me and about 90% of my students. So if you have not sent me a text, my contact information is right here, 678-713-4727. Feel free to do that while we're talking. You can just send me a quick text, and that'll give me your contact information in my phone. And that'll also allow you to have my number in your phone so that when I'm calling you or texting you, you'll know who I am as well. Communication. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis. For those of you who entered the course at the beginning of August, you know I'm pretty regular. I send out weekly emails, which are just updates and announcements about what should be expected in the course. I also try, and if I have an issue, I will first address that issue with the student. If I'm unable to resolve it directly with the student, I will always communicate that with the parent. You'll find that I'm more proactive than reactive. So the reasons I may be calling or texting you, maybe you haven't logged in for 2 or 3 days, and I just want to check and make sure everything's okay. Feel free to text, email, or call me at any time as well. My office hours are 8 to 8 any school day, and I try and respond to those fairly quickly so that everybody can keep moving. Just so you know, one of the other ways that I also will be communicating with you and the students is I'll be making occasional face-to-face visits up to the school. I sent out a form just the other day asking for some information so that I can start preparing my school visits. This week I will be at Roswell High School, Alpharetta High School, Cambridge. I don't have any students at Milton, so I won't be there this week. And next week I'm going to be at Centennial, Northview, Johns Creek, and I'm missing one, but I can't think of Centennial.
Chattahoochee.
Chattahoochee. All right, Chattahoochee. And I know that some of your students have already informed me that they don't work in the lab there. However, I'll be letting them know that I'm coming anyways in the times that I'll be there just to make sure that we can touch base. I think it's always nice to meet everybody face to face and put a face behind the computer. All right. So a couple of things, students, please make sure that you check your email and message function every day. I try real hard not to send out multiple emails a day, although I know in these first few weeks that's been almost impossible. But a few places you can check your email, you can check it on the dashboard, and then it always goes to your personal email as well. Keep track of your pacing guide. Each of the AMDM courses received a pacing guide. A few of you that are with us this evening received customized pacing guides because you want to finish the course even earlier than the end of the semester, so I personalized your pacing guide. The pacing guide gives you an indication of what you should be completing. Now, there are only long-term goals. This is just an example of a pacing guide from last year. So, for example, it says that by January 12th, you would be on quiz section B of Unit 1. Well, you can still be turning in all of these assignments that are listed above prior to that date. But by January 12th, you need to have gotten all this work turned in plus the quiz completed. Now, one thing, and I'll be talking about this in a moment, I give a lot of feedback in my homework. So I actually read each student's homework carefully. So for example, on the estimating crowds assignment, which was the actual first homework assignment, a lot of students went back and redid that assignment after receiving some of the feedback that I gave them. Each homework assignment, you have 2 attempts to turn in for full credit. I encourage you to look at the feedback that I'm giving you and make sure that if you have any questions or concerns that you reach out for me if something isn't clear. And we'll talk a little bit more about homework assignments and grading in a second. But that said, don't wait till January 12th to turn in all those assignments or you're not going to get the benefit of the feedback prior to taking the quiz. Grading policy, this is in your syllabus, but just a FYI, your tests and projects are worth 40%, quizzes 25%. There are discussion questions in every unit, those are worth 5%. Those assignments are worth 15%. You'll notice that's a fairly low percentage. That's because you are not graded on accuracy on the assignments. Your assignments are graded using the following rubric: 50% if you answer all questions and 50% if you show your work. It's important to show your work so that I can give you feedback that you're setting up the problem correctly, or if you need to make some corrections prior to taking the quiz. Here are some examples of some homework assignments that are exemplary. Now, one thing I want to point out is that all homework assignments must be submitted as either a PDF or a Word document. And if you're not certain on how to do that, please reach out to me right away. I've already helped several people who were concerned about that. and they've been able to turn it in. Just to give you a few ideas, here's an example down here on the bottom left-hand corner where a student actually printed out the worksheets, showed all their work by writing it in by hand, and then they were able to scan it using their iPhone and then upload it as a PDF to the document. On the right-hand side, which is, I'm going to blow that up just a little bit. On the right-hand side, you'll notice that what the student did here is they actually typed right into the document using a bolder print. So this particular student actually, this is a Word document where they actually typed in the questions themselves, answered the question, and then they just cut and paste the pictures. There are also things like the Adobe Reader DC, which I sent a link to everyone of, and I have one student who's actually using Doc Hub, and her assignments look beautiful, all color coded. You know, she definitely has got that Doc Hub down. In fact, I'm going to try and get her to help me make a short video of how to use that Doc Hub correctly. And once I have that, I'll pass that out to everybody. Now, the feedback, we're going to talk in a second about how to find your feedback, but make sure after you've gotten your grade on your homework assignments that you do go back and look at that feedback. All right, quizzes. On your quizzes, you must show work to receive full credit. You always get 2 attempts on every quiz, so again, make sure that you go back over the feedback. To show your work, you simply just have to type it in before you give your answer. The only questions you don't have to show work for are multiple choice questions. Tests and projects. There is one major unit project per one major project per unit, and you can check your pacing guide. The projects are worth a test grade. So instead of having just paper and pencil test, you will turn in a project and then a paper pencil test just to make sure that you have mastered all of the standards. Each project has a detailed rubric, so I always suggest to my students that they read the rubric carefully. And then there's one major test at the end of each of the units. All right. It's important that you understand how the platform works. Parents, for those of you who maybe haven't looked inside Blackboard, when your student enters the course, this is the first thing they see. The only module they have access to when they first open the course is the course introduction and overview. The reason for that is each module opens as the student finishes that particular module. So in this first module, Course Introduction and Overview, there's actually quite a few pieces of information that are of value. How to open or how to submit assignments, what are the expectations. Another copy of the syllabus and pacing guide are also available in that course introduction. All right, here is an example of what the grade book looks like. And unfortunately, parents don't have access to the grade book, so there's 2 ways that I deal with this. One, I highly encourage you to ask your students to log in and let you see their grade book at any given time. The other thing is every 3 weeks I will send out a detailed progress report on your individual students. So you can then check that, and I do that on a real regular basis. I just want to look at the next slide for a second before I blow this up anymore. Yep. Okay. First thing I want you to notice on this slide, whoops, sorry. Okay. One thing I wanted to point out are these little bubbles here next to where it says 100%. So even though this student got 100% on this first homework assignment, there's also feedback for them to look at. And if they click on the bubble, all their feedback will come up. So if I said, you know, be careful, you multiplied here when you should have added, or here's the correct formula to use, all of that information will be in that feedback. So make sure you're checking that on a regular basis. All right, the other thing I just want to point out is that in your grade book, for every assignment that you're given, you are also told the due date of that assignment. You're also given a brief description, and the rubric on how that assignment's going to be graded is there. All of this information is under My Grades, so make sure that you spend some time exploring that area of the platform. And that's just another example. It's that bubble right there that you want to check to see about feedback. All right, so those are kind of the details of the course and the layout of the course. So at this time, let's take a quick look here. Are there any questions that people might have? And feel free to share your question with everybody.
I have one.
Sure.
We got an email saying basically the whole world has changed because a lot of people are doing AB and restructuring things. What does that really mean for my kid who is an AB and is now being restructured? I think I saw that basically you redid all the homework entries, so she's right back on pace.
Right.
Is there anything else we need to do for that?
Nope. Nope, you're good. We have a larger group than expected that are taking the full year, meaning they're taking both semesters, semester A and semester B during the fall semester. And due to that, we found that for a lot of reasons, for one, collaboration purposes, as well as pacing purposes, it helps if they're in their own platform. So all we've done is taken all the students that were in AB and placed them, they just have a different login when they go to Blackboard. But once they're in Blackboard, nothing's changed. Everything's the same. And initially, unfortunately, I did not have access to that class first thing this morning. So, but as soon as I requested access to that class, I had it and was able to go in and make sure that no student who had turned in work lost anything. Everything's already in there for them. So they are good to go, just as if, you know, just like Friday, they're in the same place.
Thank you for making it easy.
Okay. You're very welcome. The only thing I will say to my AB students out there, it was kind of a busy day preparing for this evening, and I also had, you know, Mondays are always busy for virtual teacher. You guys do lots of work on the weekends, which is great. So I haven't had an opportunity to go in and update the due dates in the AB course yet. So don't panic. Those will be updated by tomorrow morning. Any other questions? That's a great question because that was a big switch this morning.
Will you be sending this video out?
Yes, I will gladly share it. I hate to send out emails, you know, to everybody, because it's a large file. Probably what I'll do is I'll send out an email saying if anybody would like a copy of the recording, and then I'll just go ahead and send it to those that would like the recording.
Maybe a Google Drive link or similar instead?
Well, I might even just upload it to YouTube and just send a link to the YouTube.
Yeah, okay, cool.
That would be good.
Okay. Similar to the welcome video, hopefully everybody watched. Any other
Yes,
concerns or
yes,
questions?
please.
Go ahead.
As far as homework and quizzes go, so I think homework, each question gets half of its score for doing it and half of its score for showing your work, not necessarily getting it right, because the whole point is to show your work. So you have
Right.
two passes. If suppose I'm working a problem, I do it, I show my work, I do it wrong, I get feedback, I do it, I show my work, I still get it wrong. As homework goes, is that still a
You
pass
still,
for that question?
yes, you still get
Okay.
100% on that homework assignment. I do not take off points for getting
Right.
the homework incorrect. What I
Because
do,
they should be
however,
learning how to do it.
right, exactly. And that's why that feedback's important. And that's really kind of why I give the kids really emphasize to the students they need to be turning those assignments in as quickly as they can, because that gives them more opportunity to go back, look at it again. I've already held some Skype sessions with students who still were struggling. You know what I mean? Sometimes 2 times aren't enough. Sometimes you really need somebody to kind of go over it in a different way. So I also
Mhm.
have additional resources and do Skype help sessions, as well as eventually being able to do face-to-face. It's amazing. This is my first semester, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. 85% of my students do not work on this class at school in a computer lab. So, and I have about
Right.
50% who are working at home 100% of the time. So it's going to be interesting to see how we fit in some face-to-face visits, but we'll figure something out. Already I found that a lot of my students are working awesome just through virtual help sessions. I'm able to use a chalkboard and answer questions and show my screen very similar to if I were sitting in the room with them.
Cool. So then part two is quizzes. I think I heard you say also have two passes and feedback. What constitutes a successful quiz question grade?
Right. If you showed your work and you set up the problem correctly, but you just made like an arithmetic mistake. You know what I mean? Like, for example, you were supposed to multiply and you added
Transpose a digit
instead.
or something.
Right. Then you get partial credit. And so quizzes are graded using partial credit. So if you have a really good setup, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, you didn't get the right answer, you still get partial credit, and you'll get some feedback on that, and you'll be able to see which questions you get partial credit on, and you'll be able to go back and review those questions and answers and then attempt the quiz again. Now, if you only put the answer down, you only get, let's say you put the answer down and it's correct, but you didn't show any work, you only get 50% for that correct answer.
Ah, right, okay. So for homework, it's the doing and the working. For quizzes, it's the doing and the working and the right answer.
Correct. Correct.
But you have to have the doing and the working and the
Right.
right answer in the quiz.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And we want to make sure, and a lot of the questions for this first unit is actually called Estimating Large Numbers. So the students start off, the answers are very open-ended. How would you estimate the crowd in a football stadium? Something of that nature. So there aren't necessarily right answers, and that sometimes can be difficult for students because they want there to be like, x equals 25. And it's more about the process than it is the answer that you got. So it's a lot of looking at students' work and based on how they set up the problem, using their ratio, using their answer, did they do it correctly? So it's a lot more about the process. I hope that made sense. As we move on, go ahead.
A quick question. Are there foundational place other than YouTube that the student might get help
Yes,
to
and I
solve the question. Like on YouTube, I'm sorry. On YouTube, they, some of the examples are great, but on the quizzes and the homework, it's totally different. So, just trying to get some other help with that.
right. And that is a lot to do with the fact that these are open-ended questions. So this is about the process. The crowd problem, the tennis ball problem, those problems weren't exact answers. But the process was important. Did you understand that if you found a ratio of the number of people who could stand in a 5 by 5 square, that you could then transfer that to how many people are standing in a mile by 10 feet? So those types of processes are correct. However, if a student is still struggling to understand, several of them have reached out. We've looked at some different videos. I've Skyped with a few people and we've kind of solved it a different way. So there's lots of different resources. That's the one
Okay,
downside
great.
to virtual class, is that I can't see the puzzled look on your child's face. So,
Exactly.
so they need to, this is going to go back to slide number 1, 2, and 3. They have to
Right.
just communicate and let me know. So
Sure.
already it's very interesting. Even in this short first 2 weeks, I've already learned who my strong communicators are going to be. Like, they've already reached out to me 4, 5, 6 times a day, which is awesome because they get their questions answered really quickly. My concern is about the kid who I haven't heard from. And so chances are this past weekend, some of you parents sitting out there have heard from me because I'm like, I'm not hearing from them. So that's the one thing that, that's where that communication, and that's a learning process, learning curve, and that's what's nice about this first unit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So if you have a student who is sick for a couple days and they're not, they miss a quiz or a test, are they able to make that up or no?
That's a great question. That's an awesome question. The pacing guide is just a guideline. This class is self-paced, meaning you should plan to spend an hour to an hour and a half on this class every day, but real life gets in the way of that. So if I know that I've got a football game and I've got extra long practice today, maybe the day before I've got to spend a little extra time on this class to work on some of those assignments. There are no late penalties, and that is stated in the syllabus. There are no late points. That said, I have found, especially because I'm dealing almost exclusively with seniors, if it gets to the quiz date and you haven't turned anything in, I go ahead and put zeros in for those assignments and for that quiz, just so you as the student and the parent have a clearer understanding of what the true grade is. Now, you still can turn in those assignments, and once you turn in those assignments, you're going to receive full credit for those assignments. But I don't want to leave your average as 100 every time you go in and you think you have 100 in the class, and the only reason you have 100 is because you've only turned in one assignment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Proper expectations.
Right, right. I don't want anybody to be under the illusion that, they can wait until the, end of the semester and do all of this work. This is a project-based course, which means that truly what it means is every problem is based on a situation. The students are getting a little exposure to that this first unit with the crowd problem, tennis ball problem, etc. Some of the things that we're going to cover this year, and I'm going to say year because I have everybody in all different places. We're going to talk about money and finance, and how do you keep a savings and a checking account, and how do you deal with that, and what is the mathematics behind that. We talk about the motion of a Ferris wheel and how objects in real life have mathematical graphs associated with them that represent their motion.
Paragraph.
So we do a lot of different problem-solving activities. So that said, they take a long time, so I don't want anybody to wait until the last minute to turn stuff in.
It makes that the feedback part rather difficult too.
Yes, that's an excellent point. If everybody turns their work in the day before all the grades are due, it's hard to give as deep feedback as if every morning. And just so you all know what my routine is, I go in every workday morning and I grade until I'm done. And I check again in the afternoon. So I am checking to make sure your students get as timely feedback as possible so that they're not waiting on me. Is anybody a newcomer to virtual school? Do we have any first timers?
Yes.
Okay. And that can be a new experience for everybody as a parent, as as a student. So please make sure, do not hesitate to ask me any questions that you might have about, how the virtual school is working, or, Blackboard is not super what I call parent friendly because we don't have a parent portal. But that's why I print off those progress reports every 3 weeks and send those out. And again, if you want to see your child's grades more often than that, you just need to have them log in and go to My Grades, and they can see their detailed grades at all times. Any other questions?
Me again. I have a technical question.
Sure.
Thoughts on the Fulton County issued Microsoft Surface, thank you, and Chromebook. We don't have a classic Windows PC kind of thing typically available. I think I'd spoken with you briefly about Surface, but can one do everything necessary from a Surface? For instance,
Yes.
we can't print from the Chromebook here at our house.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry. Does she have a Chromebook or a Surface? I'm not.
Both.
Okay. I'm not as familiar with the Chromebook. But whatever I
Yeah,
don't know, I'm willing to try and find out. I can promise
sure.
I don't know that.
Leave the Chromebook aside. That's
Okay.
not a factor. But we're new to Surface, and I
Okay.
think you said that you were working up some tech support guides for Surface. And I wonder, for instance, because I know we can't with our Chromebook, can we print from a Surface?
I don't want to say out loud just in case I'm wrong, but I'm like 90% sure that you can, yes, because I had students who did it last year, and that's what I'm going by.
Cool.
But I don't know if they had like a go around. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, right.
Let
Like
me
Dad's PC.
exactly. So let me make sure I verify that. And yes, I am going to go ahead, and I am just kind of got busy at the beginning of the school year, but I'm working on a video that shows 4 different ways to work on your assignments, and that's either using your iPhone to scan as a PDF, using the Adobe Reader, using a Surface, or if you're using the traditional laptop, what are some ways that you can go about getting those homework assignments done and showing all your work. I know it sounds like a real emphasis on that, but word problems are not every student's favorite thing to do. But unfortunately, this course is just one word problem after the other. So it's important for me to see how they're processing the information prior to them taking a quiz or test so that I can make sure that they understand what they're working on.
Sure.
All right. One last thing I just want to add before we kind of wrap up is we have unit reviews where I have a Skype session similar to this one here where I invite the students to come and ask any questions. Now, with that said, since it is a self-paced class, not everybody is at the same place at the same time. So you may have a student who is ready to take the Unit 1 test tomorrow. And if that's the case and they would like to hold a review session with me ahead of time, that's perfectly fine. They just need to let me know. And they can do that again through text, email. They can give me a call. Once I put the announcement out, I would encourage your student, even if they're not ready to take the test, to still participate in that review session. I've found that a lot of students found it very beneficial to kind of come to those review sessions, even if they weren't exactly ready to take the test.
So when you get the call for one, you'll have a general one, and anyone's welcome to join up. But you're not going to hold like 16
Right.
Unit 1 review sessions.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I got you.
And mostly because I also find that it's most beneficial. I know that a lot of your students are working virtually in their home, but it's also good to hear feedback from the other students who are going through the same material, because someone might ask a question that you may not think of. So I try to make those review opportunities a time for students to be able to collaborate with each other and kind of bounce the ideas off of one another. And what's very interesting is I often find that a lot of the students have approached a problem differently than I have, and it makes total sense to everybody else. So, with problem-based learning, there is no one path to the answer. So it's always nice to have a lot of voices.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Well, I just want to conclude by saying, number one, I so appreciate all of you taking your time to join me. And number two, please remember I am available. Feel free to reach out to me, whatever your mode of communication you're most comfortable with. I will do my best. If I don't get back to you right away, it usually is because I'm working with another student. And as soon as I'm finished with that student, I will get with you. All right. Well, you all have a great evening.
Okay, thank you.
You
You're
too.
very welcome.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye all.